Hi, I'm Sam Zimmerman, and today I'm going to be doing a visual interpretation of an ode to bones off the Gateway Drum Smokers website. You can find this under the recipes tab, and it's just called an ode to bones. Let's get started. Ode to Bones by Getting Basted. Gather round the fire, my friends. Grab your drink as dark descends. For a tale so demented, you'll be certain that I fed. I speak of the tallest man in barbecue. He's a lot like me and you. And how he taught me how to hang the perfect rib. He told me on a moonless night, as he sipped on my last Coors Light, scratched his Johnson and used my cooler for a seat. Said, now I'll tell you a story about how I won my rib glory. I trust that you will keep it most discreet. He said, son, I used to pellet cook until I gave those drums a look. That fat dripping on the coals tastes so sublime. I learned the drum from a guy named Brinker. After that, I'd cook and tinker. I started hanging so I could cook more than 3 at a time. Okay, this is where we get into the cooking part. So it says right here, you want to run a small hot fire, add pecan wood if you so require. We have the Gateway drum right now at 300 degrees. And that's the needle on your drum should be up and down. So that's 300 degrees. Rub the ribs with Big Papa's money and add a dash of John Henry's honey. We don't have those two rubs, but we do have Eat Barbecue, Zero to Hero, and Cosmo Q Killer Bee Honey Rub. The Big Papa rubs are great. We just don't have any on hand right now. So we have some Smithfield extra tender spare ribs that are trimmed to St. Louis cut. And the first thing we're going to do is put the hooks in. These are the older hooks, but they still work great. We're going to put the hooks in the small side of the bone so that they're popping through so that they hook the meat well. You kind of want to test to make sure they don't fall off and that the big bones are going to be towards your fire. We'll do that on both these racks. Okay, so then we trimmed them to around 8 to 10 bones, just short enough that they won't be setting in the fire box, basically, the fire basket. So these are all trimmed, the membranes removed on the back of them. So yeah, let's season them and get ready to go. So we're just going to put a light coat of this rub over the top. We'll flip them over and get the back. And this is Zero to Hero Eat Barbecue Rub. It's really good on pork. And yeah, it's got sweet, a little bit of heat. And then we got Cosmo Q Killer Bee Honey Rub. This is just kind of a sweet rub with a little saltiness and a little pepperiness to it. Alright. Go ahead and flip them over and finish the top sides of them. So we'll go through a little bit more of the Zero to Hero on top. It's a real light coat. And another pretty light coat of the Cosmo Killer Bee. Like I said, you can kind of use any rub you want to, I think. There's a lot of good ones out there. Big Papa Smokers has good ones. Simply Marvelous. Eat Barbecue, obviously. Cimarron Docs. There's some really good rib rubs out there. I think this recipe works pretty well with anything. So we're going to let them sweat up a little bit. Maybe about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we'll throw them on the smoker. Okay, we've thrown a small chunk of actually hickory in here. The instructions say pecan, but we didn't have any pecan. So the ribs have sweated up, or started to sweat, however you want to say it. It kind of just means that the dry rub that you put on has started to liquefy, and it gives the ribs a nice color, if you can see there. As you guys saw earlier, we have the hooks in, so we're just actually going to take these and put them in the drum, put them on the rack. Make sure that fire keeps running at 300, and yeah, we'll be back when we have the next step. Every half hour, give the ribs a turn, making sure the ends don't burn. A deep red color the ribs will now acquire. The outsides will start to sizzle, the fat will pop and fizzle. Pull them off to wrap if one falls in the fire. Now I know they're not yet done, but it's been about 30 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and turn the rack. And you can kind of see they're already starting to get a color on them. Some of the fat's already starting to render. And you can really smell the pork fat, you can really smell the rub, and you can really smell the smoke too. So it smells wonderful. They look really good so far. So we'll be back in a little bit. Hey, we're getting ready to check the ribs. As you can see, there's a lot of what appears to be smoke coming out. Don't get alarmed, it's not a dirty fire or anything. That's just a lot of the fat that's starting to render off the ribs, and they're dripping onto the coals and just kind of like steaming our meat with that nice fatty flavor. So we're going to check them, see if they're starting to sizzle like the poem said, and we'll take them off if they're ready. They're starting to sizzle, and actually we had one just fall off into the fire, so we know they're well and done. So I'm going to reach in and grab that. You can see on the end it's really sizzling there. Catch that? Alright, that's kind of what they should look like. We'll just go inside and wrap them now and move on to the next part. Okay, now we're ready to wrap. We're going to move on to the next part of the poem. A flavorful wrap, it's time to pick. Tennessee red and a butter stick. Slap them on the bones, the smell will intoxicate. Sprinkle on some sugar brown. That's the key to Flavor Town. Wrap them tight in foil and lay them on the grate. So we're going to go ahead and wrap these up. We're going to go meat side up. Put the butter on first. I don't know if it really matters, but we're just going to try it like this. Got a whole stick of butter. Put on a decent amount of Tennessee red. And it does smell really, really good. And for the sugar, I know I'm usually pretty careful when I use sugar on the drum smokers just because it's direct heat and you don't want to burn it. So I'm just going to do half a handful of sugar, maybe a little more, just enough to cover the top. I'm going to wrap it up in 2 sheets of aluminum foil. And you want to do 2 sheets in case this first sheet breaks when you lift it up off the grate. We've already got the hanger taken out and the rack put in, still setting at 300. So we're going to wrap these up tight in double layer of aluminum foil, and we'll start checking for doneness pretty soon. Okay, we've taken both racks off, and we're going to do the next line of the poem. In less than an hour, they'll be done, but listen to me, son. You can't go by relying on temp. If they bend when you hold them, you know it's time to pull them. They're tender when they're feeling nice and limp. And I just wanted to show, I think this is super important because regardless of what rub or sauce or whatever you guys put on these, if they're not tender, it's not going to be good barbecue. So I just wanted to show how just loose they are, and they're starting to kind of crack on top even. And that's a good indicator that they're done. And these took a little bit longer than I was expecting, but it's kind of, it's barbecue. It's done when it's done, so there's no set time. So we're going to do the next line. Sauce with Blues Hog out of the jar, and sweet flavor will take you far. Coat the ribs and put them in the heat. The color will really pop from that mop you put on top. Slice them up because now it's time to eat. So I'm going to go ahead and put some Blues Hog, just the original Blues Hog, over the top of these, and set them back on the smoker for a few minutes to set the sauce up. I'll bring them back in, slice them, and we can see how they look. Okay, now we just took them off the smoker. They were set with some of that Blues Hog original sauce on them. We're going to slice them up real quick and see how they are. It feels super tender slicing into them. They smell really good. That Blues Hog sauce it's a super sweet sauce, but it seems like, it tastes really complex too, so I really enjoy it. So Here's one of the ribs. Looks like they have good moisture. Clean bone. And these aren't fall off the bone necessarily, but I would call them good for like a KCBS competition. They have a clean bite mark on them, perfectly tender, super juicy, and that Blues Hog sauce just adds like it's hard to describe, but it's like another dimension of flavor on there. They're really good ribs. I mean, I'd recommend this recipe, and just follow along. If you guys have any other questions, there's a lot of resources out there. The Insane Can Posse on Facebook is one of them. This was like the first recipe I tried when I first got my Gateway drum, and it kind of set me on the right path. So I'll finish up the poem here. I can see you're out of beer. The fire's dying and I fear. I've said more than I really meant to say. So if trophies you'd be obtaining, give those ribs a proper hanging. Goodbye for now. I'm afraid I must away. He tipped his trucker hat, slowly turned away and spat, faded from the light of the dying fire. I tell you it's all true, and now I pass it on to you. Here's to good hanging, and I'm hoping I inspire. So I'll go ahead and put a link to this down below. I hope you guys try it out. The Gateway drums are awesome. These ribs, I would say it was between 2 and 2.5 hours. I checked around 2 hours and they still felt rubbery. And what I mean by that, they just kind of were bouncy when I was checking for tenderness. So I let them go another 30 minutes and they were perfect. So just give this a shot, and happy smoking.